Okay, what is up guys? It is Tomato here with another attempt of a guide. Today I was thinking I was gonna look at Toplane. To start off with Toplane, I thought I'd make a very simplistic basic guide of how to get started in Toplane. I got some things I want to take a look at. For the 4 things I want to go through in this video is champion identity, how to identify how to trade properly, and then how to do a slow push, and then how to freeze a wave, the uses of both of these. So as you can see here on the left side, I have made a little bit of a very simplified tier list of most of the top lane champions you're going to be seeing, and I've categorized them in all in, poke, sustain, wants to do nothing, and then singed, because singed just plays his own game most of the time. Very simplified answer is poke beats all in beats sustain, and sustain beats poke. But obviously there's nuances in all of these matchups, right? Like there's some poke matchups that are gonna beat all in, there's some all in matchups that are gonna beat sustain because they have sustain themselves. And it's not like an all-in champion doesn't also have sustain. For example, Tryndamere is one of the notorious ones that I could have put into sustain as well. But he, most of the time, is just going to sustain up and then going to all-in you at some point. Meanwhile, these champions are most notorious for just wanting to poke you down a little bit before doing there. Then we have the scaling ones that will win lane if the lane ends 0-0-0, because they either have map pressure or just have insane scaling with levels like Kayle and Ornn, or with stacks like Nasus, or just scale infinitely with HP like Sion, or can just impact other lanes with their ultimate like Shen. Sustain, they just can stay in lane forever basically, meaning that if you just poke them down, they're just gonna heal up at some point. So most of these champions are not just all in, not just poke, not just sustain. They have some of, like, they have the characteristics of these champions. But obviously if you were to have a double poke matchup, like let's say Gangplank and Akali, it's Akali's job to all in the Gangplank. Let's go to the next point, trading. So most of these champions have either 1 or 2 highly vital abilities that they need to survive or to trade, right? So for example, a lot of people have issues playing into Vayne, but if she ever just uses her E, the condemn, recklessly, then you should be able to punish her. You have like a 20-second window to punish her, and it costs a much mana, and she doesn't have that much mana pool. So if you can just get her to use her E, and you don't have to expend much resources to do so, and just do so over and over, and she's eventually forced into a recall. Other examples is Darius E, Apprehend, it's the grab in, Jax's E, Counter Strike, Bear Trap on a Rope, Kled Q, and also very notoriously Fiora riposte her W. So when these abilities are down, that's when you would look to do a trade. Set is one of these champions that has multiple, which would be his E and W. They have very long cooldown, most of these abilities, and if they have mana, they also cost a lot of mana. So that's basically when you would be looking for a trade, right? So when the...
I'm very busy. Okay.
Ability. Obviously, if it's used recklessly, right? Like, not if you get like hit. Let's say you get grabbed in by Darius. That doesn't mean like, oh yeah, let's go. It means like if he E's the minion and he misses, then you could look for a short trade if you have some sort of ability to do so. In certain matchups, you're gonna have it so that you're not able to trade into certain matchups. So let's say you'd be playing Kayle into Darius pre-6. Like, there's not really many opportunities you would have to kill the Darius if he hasn't done something really ridiculous to begin with. And that's how top lane is sometimes. Just be mindful of that and try to like learn what the champions do so you can identify which ability is the important one. And some champions don't really have that ability, like Tryndamere for example. Yeah, he has the spin, but he's mostly using auto attacks. An example of abilities you could use to bait out that would be stuff like Renekton Q that only has an 8-second cooldown. So let's say you get a Fiora riposte by just using a Renekton Q. Then you can just sit back, wait 8 seconds for the Renekton Q to come back up, and then look to trade. And to do so, I'll be picking Darius. The runes don't really matter for this, but I have Conqueror, Triumph, Legend, Tenacity, Last Stand, Conditioning, and Unflinching. So the point of the slow push that I will be showing is that if they try to trade onto you in the wave, let me see if I can spawn an enemy target dummy. So if they try to trade onto you when you have more minions, because that's what you're gonna have, is the first step of the slow push, then they're gonna most likely lose the trade due to the fact that minions in early levels are significantly more important than champions. So if you can get a minion advantage, the chances of you beating that trade is always going to increase by a significant amount. The longer the game goes on, the more that changes, right? Anyhow, so the important is you want to try to be at least one auto attack ahead of your opponent. So if your opponent starts hitting the wave, you need to start matching that. In this case, the target dummy is not going to hit the wave, of course. So we're just going to last hit at the very last second and then build a slow push. See if I can just remove the target up, so Shift M. Go. So you want to stand in the middle of the wave, preferably have a stop button as well. And then just last hit the wave. We want to slow push 2 waves and then hard shove the 3rd one. So at this point we've created a slow push because it's going to push towards them even if I stop last hitting these minions. I might have pushed this a little bit too fast because I've been talking rather than focusing on just last hitting at the very, very last second. But hopefully this is going to go well. So when the next wave is approaching, that is when you're gonna hard shove the wave with all of your abilities. Which in this case is going to be, so you just start auto attacking. Obviously you're gonna have to have an opponent here, but if they trade into you here, see how much of a minion wave minion advantage you have here? So they're most of the time just gonna straight up lose this. So you're gonna get this crash, and at this point, unless you've traded very heavily into them, you can dive them. You just look for recall here, and then you're gonna end up back with a item advantage, right? So let's say you buy a longsword and some potions, or even just a Doran's blade or anything, right? Or boots or whatever you feel like you need. But normally there would be somebody CSing these minions, and they would be creating a slow pushback. So all you would have to do at that point is to thin the wave to then either kill them, or they would have to use teleport to get back, and then you get a summoner advantage. So the wave is going to end up freezing on your side. Again, there's no one hitting these minions, so there's a little bit less minions here. But I guess we can just go straight up into how to freeze at this point. So freezing is when you keep 4 or 5 minions more than the enemy outside of your tower. Like right around here. The reason why I'm saying 4 or 5 is because you can freeze with less, but then you'd have to drag the minions back further so they don't get focused down by your minions. So this is technically freezing, even though it's a little bit too far up to be freeze already. And the benefits of freezing is it's very difficult to gank you. You can look for an all-in if you are an all-in champion, right? And again, you're so close to your tower, so you're never really in the risk of dying. So if you're in a matchup where you could get all-in, well, you're safe from the all-in because there's your tower. You're very close to it. Again, what you're currently seeing is not really where you would want to have your freeze. I'm going to wait a couple waves more until it gets closer to my tower. I've been thinning it out a little bit too well here. But at this point we're probably going to get it slightly closer. Still a little bit too far. But this is the part where you roughly would drag it back. If you would want to do 1 or 2 minions. I think 1 minion is very difficult, but 2 minions is doable if you can just pull them back. So here you see, oh, that's a lot more than 4 minions. I need to thin this. And at this point, your opponent would either be low on HP or mana, because of the fact that they would have to clear your huge minion and you could trade favorably into them. Or they just recalled and then they're gonna have missed experience, so you'd have a level lead and item lead. So now we have a freeze here. So the way we maintain it is just to last hit at the very last second. And as you see, as your minions are about to die, you can start to auto attack a little bit more. This is gonna take practice, of course. And then let's see, is it Shift B? Yeah, okay, so it's Shift B. So in some certain matchups you can't all in because they're also very good at defending it. So if you, let's say I'm trying to set up an all in on this target dummy, then what I would do is probably thin it out like this. And unless they back off, you just like start at some point sprinting at them, auto W, whatever you do, right? Obviously I'm botching this quite heavily, but you would have a long way to run with your ghost on Darius, for example, until like they have like back in safety of their tower, right? But again, if they're not walking up like this, like these times, let me see if I can, it was Shift M, right? Okay. So if they're not walking up like this far or this far even, and they're just sitting back here collecting XP, well, would you look at that? You can just free farm near your tower with the freeze you've built, and you're gonna end up building up a massive gold lead on your opponent. So technically you haven't killed them, but you've killed them because you have gotten more CS than they have. This obviously relies on you being at least decent enough to CS, but I would rely on you to at least manage to get an either EXP or gold advantage this way. So again, just real quick, I'm gonna go through all of the points we went through as a quick summary. First, identify the matchup, right? Like, what do you want to do? Do you want to all in? Do you want to try to poke them out till you have them at half HP, 60% HP, 40% HP? What are you trying to do, right? And then secondly, once you've figured out what you want to do in this matchup, like you say, okay, yeah, I am Fiora, I want to all in. They have no chance at dueling me if we're on even footing. Okay, well then what do you want to do? You want to set up a freeze into then trying to all in them because of the long lane that top lane is, right? Okay, let's say you're not Fiora, let's say you're something like a Gangplank or a Vayne or a Malphite, right? So what do you want to do? You want to just poke them out, hit them, whittle them down. You don't really go into any extended trades, you just throw your ranged abilities at them. But let's say they at some point then get frustrated, they use their very important defensive ability or just their important offensive ability. And then you can even, as a poke champion, look for an all-in because their most important tool is no longer there. Look for ability. Do they use it? Can you look for a trade? Anyways, that's all I have for this very basic guide. Thank you guys for watching. And if you want to see something else next, like maybe mid lane or support or the other types of the ADCs that I still have to do, let me know in the comments below and I'll see you guys next time. If you like this type of content, feel free to subscribe and I'll see you next time. Bye.